I solemnly swear that I will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.
Yeah, hi everybody. Ron here from The Truth About Addiction. Welcome to another podcast. Today we have Bradley Mcleod. Brad's he fights out of Canada and weighing in at a good weight of sobriety. And Brad, look, welcome to The Truth About Addiction, mate. Please tell us who you are, please, brother.
Oh man, that's a loaded question to start here, Ron.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess you might have seen me from the sober motivation community, or sober is cool.
Yeah.
Sort of inspiring community and inspiring people through other people's stories is sort of the mission there to help people. But yeah, I mean, I got into recovery back in 2010. And I kind of share that story maybe to kick things off, but I had a lot of interventions throughout my life. When I was 17, I went to a 12-month forced wilderness program. I struggled with ADHD, suicidal thoughts, mental health, depression, never did well in school. So I just felt completely rejected. Like I felt like that was the standard, was to do well in school and get good grades. And then you'll get the house, the white picket fence, and the family one day. But if you don't do that, like, I don't blame anybody for the way things went, but if you didn't do well, then you were just a problem. That sort of, and I used to get suspended from school, and I created tons of chaos all around me. But that day, January 11th, 2010, when I got into this recovery stuff for good, I had lived up in Canada, and I got off of stuff for a bit. I was dabbling here and there, but I was drinking every day for like 8 months, and I moved up with my grandparents. And I went back to visit my folks. They still live in the US. And I got off the airplane. Well, I got to Toronto first. I got to the airport there, and the customs agents there, they were asking me a million questions, Ron. This, that, everything else. They took me in this little private room, and I knew in my stomach at the time, though, this is kind of strange, right? This has never been I've never been asked all these questions before, a bunch of ID and everything. And then they put me on my way. They said, "Oh, it's a big misunderstanding." They put me on my way. They took me in, back hallway right to the plane. Bing, bang, boom. When I got off the plane in Raleigh, North Carolina, the police were there waiting. So there was like 5 or 6 people, some local police, the airport police, and they had my mugshot, a picture of me. And there was warrants for my arrest from like 2 years prior. I sold narcotics to an undercover police officer like multiple times. So a buddy of mine must have got in trouble. And he was a rough dude. I wouldn't even say he was a buddy. He was an acquaintance. He was a really rough dude. He was a lot older than I was. And he must have gotten in trouble. And then he had sort of set up these deals. So that was the day. And that day was really important because that was like the ultimate accountability, right? So I was going off to prison after that. And my life would change forever for the best, man. And honestly, like at the time, I was like, oh my gosh, Ron, like, what did I do? But looking back, it was the best doggone thing that ever could have happened to me, because it really closed the book on what was, and gave me an opportunity to start building like the next, writing the next chapters of my story.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I believe, that we have to have a foundation. Some people's foundation is really slow and tedious, and, takes them 30 years to realize, like, my wife left me, the kids don't talk to me, the dog runs outside, something's gone wrong, and then we get busted, and it's like, whoa, this is not what I had planned. This is not my life,
Yeah.
We have to take responsibility. And by the sounds of what you're saying already, like, you had a rude awakening before the spiritual awakening.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, I had a little bit of a spiritual awakening too, and I didn't get sober after it, but it's good you brought that up. Like a year, like 8 months, 9 months prior to that, I was doing heroin, I was on methadone, I was taking pills, I was drinking beer, um, the whole mix. And I woke up this one day, everything had came crashing down, right? When I got out of that treatment center around 2005, I was in college. I had my own place. I got my first job. I had a great relationship with my folks. I went to therapy. I went to Celebrate Recovery meetings. Everything was gravy. Everything was really good. And then I just fell off. I stopped needing help. I had it all figured out. I was inconvenienced by therapy. I was inconvenienced by seeing my psychiatrist and getting my medications. I wanted to just do whatever. And then that opened up the door to really everything blowing up. But I was a few years later, I ended up, from all that stuff I had, but it was all gone, really quick. And I was a convicted felon in the US at 18. First time I got arrested, I was 16. And they don't fool around with this stuff. So, I mean, at 16, they want to put you in jail.
Yeah.
It's still a lot different here in Canada. But at 16, they're happy to put you in jail for a year. When you're 18, they're more than happy to put you in jail for a year if you don't have the money for a good lawyer, and that's that sort of stuff, right? And I would sleep on my brother's bedroom floor. He'd have people over, right? And he lived a normal life, so it was like kind of he never told me this, but it was like I'm thinking he was probably embarrassed. I was in rough shape, and I was like a full blown drug addict. So he didn't want me like hanging out. Sometimes I'd sleep on the couch, but this day I was sleeping on the floor, and I always used to put on Dexter. That's the only show I had. I had to go to sleep with something because I try to stop the thoughts that I would just constantly having all the time.
Yeah.
And I woke up and there was this little sliver crack in the blinds. Sometimes they get hung up on each other, and the light was coming in and it hit me. And for once I had these thoughts kind of come into my head about this is either going to kill you, you're going to kill yourself, or you're going to try to get sober. And I was like, okay, well, that's great, but I don't know what sober is. Like a great idea wherever this is coming from, but it wouldn't go away, and it wouldn't go away. And that was the day when I really really reached out for help. See, I'd burned every bridge close to me, my folks, my brother, my friends, but my grandparents I hadn't talked to in a couple years. And I was honestly embarrassed to talk with them because to your grandparent. My mom had my brother and I when she was 16. So she had twins. So my grandparents raised us a lot, right? Like my brother and I are like my grandfather passed away now, but we were their world. They raised us, they helped us. And that was the last phone call I wanted to make to my, elderly grandparents, that I've got this drug problem and I need to get some help. But I didn't know where else to reach out. So I picked up the 3,000-pound phone and I called them, and like they drove down to North Carolina, and we were in Florida like 2 days later. And I didn't stay sober after that time. I went to the rehab there for 10 days, 7 or 10 days. But it was like the first time I realized this is not going to turn out good. I'm either going to be dead or in prison. That's where I was headed. I mean, I was already racking up the charges. And then these other ones that I got caught with the drug trafficking, because when the cops do the buys, they don't want a little buy. And I wasn't even a drug dealer. Like it was more, the whole thing was like an acceptance thing. And they were bothering the shit out of me, Ron, just bothering me, so it was like this guy and everything. So, I went through with it, but it was really far out of my character of what I ever did. I was just a user, really. I mean, I would a little bit here and there, but that was not what I woke up every day to do.
So you go back, you get busted, they put you into jail straight away. As soon as they arrest you at the airport, they put you in prison?
Yeah, no, well, I had to go to court and everything, but yeah, I was taken to jail then. Since I was a Canadian citizen, I only held a green card. I lived in the US 17 years, but I only held a green card, which thank God I did, because that really helped me out in the end. But yeah, they put the bond at $250,000. I think I had like $800. So and my folks too, they weren't, nobody was gonna really enable that type of thing anymore. Like I don't come from that kind of money to $250,000 bail. Because I was like a foreign national. Yeah, so I had to sit in jail. So my family came together, not my parents, but my family came together and hired this attorney. My grandfather used to call me before he passed away the $1 Million Man. And it's because of all the interventions over the years and the money. This stuff can get really expensive. So they hired this he used to be a district attorney for the state. Now he turned to a defense attorney. So they hired this guy. So I sat in jail there for 8 months until we could get a court date. They set everything up, Ron. I mean, this is like Tetris. They set everything up the right way. He got all the paperwork from all the treatment centers I'd been to, everything I had done. I mean, I had been seeing doctors and psychiatrists and psychologists and therapists and professionals since I was probably 10 years old. I mean, the writing was on the wall long before I ever picked up the drugs that something was up. And there was, people tried to intervene, but I wasn't even able at a young age to connect the dots.
Yeah.
And was really uncomfortable even talking with people. Like, what if people know about what's actually going on? Like, it was scary. It was that scary, right? Then what?
Yeah.
So yeah, so I went into jail for the 8 months, and then yeah, we had all the binders and everything, and we just took the case, basically that I was a drug addict. At first they were trying to say that I was a drug dealer, and that wasn't the case at all. Like, I was addicted to drugs, and that was the whole thing. And the paperwork, the binders, I mean, you should have saw it on the judge's thing there. I mean, it was maybe 20 binders like this big, like overwhelm them to the max, and maybe they'll buy it, So we went into court. So the lawyer told me, he's like, the district attorney won't agree to this plea. Like, we were just trying to say 8 months and done.
Yeah.
The attorney won't agree to it. So he's like, these are your options. And I never saw this guy. Like, in 8 months, I saw him like 3 times. Like, it was a ghost to me. But I just had to believe that he was working and he was doing his thing. I mean, there was nothing you could, I could do, right? Like, if you want him to come down to the jail, it would be $1,000.
Yeah.
So my folks are like, yeah, like we don't want to add any more to the bill. So he tells me, he's like, look, this is the deal. We got to go in front of the judge, and he's going to decide, like, right here and now, because I was facing 20 years. This was, I think it was 5 or 6 drug trafficking charges, selling cocaine, pills, and heroin. They call it opium on the paperwork, but it was very, very serious stuff. And I had absolutely no idea. Like, I was so naive to that. I had no idea this was that serious. But so I said, well, I guess that's what we'll do. I guess that's what we're going to do today. So, in the whole process of going to court and everything is terrifying too, right? You probably know, Ron.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah. I know. Trust me. I got a black belt in court cases.
yeah, it's just it's everything's out of your hands, right? Like, at the end, everything is just up to other people, and
Yep.
you're just hoping in thinking that they can see some good the way you feel good left in you, to not say, that you're not getting it, and that we need to give you a really good punishment here.
Yeah.
So they put me in this bullpen in the morning, and I don't know, man, there's 50 people in this cell, right? 10 by 10, 50 people.
Yep.
And the anxiety and everything. I mean, they call it a bullpen for a reason, because it's just bananas. People are getting sentenced 5 years, 10 years. And some people, they're just so used to it. You're kind of like, holy smokes, like, they didn't even bat an eye, like, just high fives all around, bing, bang, boom, like, let's go do it. And I'm just like, oh my God, that cannot be my life. I can't, like, I was thinking a lot that day around, like, how the heck did I end up here? I had every opportunity to do well in life, and came from a middle-class family, and, great people who, like, gave me every opportunity to succeed, to do well, so much love. And, here I am, man. What the heck happened? But so he tells me this. So we go in front of the judge. By this time, they put me in another place by myself. I go into the courtroom, and it's sad too, because you think during your addiction you have all these friends, you have all these buddies, and then I go in this courtroom, and the only people there is my mom and my brother. It's like, and I didn't expect anybody else to be there. I mean, people probably never even knew about the whole thing, but at the end of the day, I'm thinking, like, that's what it comes down to, whether they knew or not. Nobody's going to take time out of their day to do anything for you. That's just how it goes.
Yeah.
And then, I'll never forget it, Ron. It's like 5 o'clock, and I'm thinking it's like a Friday at 5 or 4, and they probably get done at about 4:30. And I'm like, this guy is just gonna bury me alive, and he's gonna go home and have dinner with his folks, and life goes on, and I'm gonna be, off to prison for 10 or 15 years more. So the judge goes up to the stand there, and the district attorney for the state goes up to the stand. They talk to this judge for, I don't know, 4 minutes, and they come back, and he's like, okay, here we go. He's going to ask you some questions and stuff. They just ask you, have you been coerced or promised anything for this, little rundown of questions. And then he sits back in his chair. He takes off his glasses. He just leans back and he takes off his glasses, kind of rubs his eyes. And I'm like, oh man, here we go. This is it, Ron. This is it, buddy. And he says 6 to 8 months, Department of Corrections. And I'd already done 8 months. But the sticking point to this was I had to plead guilty to all the charges. And then when I did plead guilty to all the charges, I would be deported from the United States, and then I would be given a lifetime ban.
Yep.
So that was the thing. But you know what? I was happy with it. I was happy with the outcome, and I really got another shot at things with that for sure.
So you come out of court, you go back to Canada. Did you stay clean from that day, or did you
go
and use again?
No, that was it. And then after I went into court, I spent another 4 months getting transferred to a bunch of different jails around the US to see another judge and everything. They, if you want to fight the case and stuff, you have an opportunity to do that. But I had no interest in fighting anything. I just wanted to get home. But after the 4 months, no, I landed back in Canada. In the time when I was in jail, man, I really worked on tearing down everything I believed before about who I was, about what I was, about what was possible. I read a ton of self-help. I mean, I read books and hung out with some of the older boys. We'd kick it and we'd play chess all day. And, I would just try to learn, man. I would just try to learn what not to do, but also like what to do, because everybody, like some people think, oh, they're in jail. Like there's not much to offer, but there's a ton of wisdom in there, and you have all the time in the world to kind of pick up what you want to pick up. And so I did a lot of that, and I had kind of 2 goals, Ron. When I was in jail, I wanted to get a German Shepherd, and I wanted to try to be an addiction counselor. I wanted to try to work with people and help people. I was naive at the time, I'll be honest, that I was gonna help these people change and everything. And maybe I have throughout the years, but it wasn't what I envisioned back in the day there, Ron. This stuff's it's hard to work on yourself, and it's hard for people to change sometimes, so, but yeah, I did both of those things, man. So I got out, I started working, I got a job. I was living with my grandparents. Obviously I had nothing. I mean, I started my life over that day with a cardboard box full of letters I didn't have.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I didn't have anything.
That's our wealth, our letters.
Yeah, exactly.
And a bunch of fear and uncertainties.
Yeah.
And the world changed, even though it mightn't sound like a long time that you're in prison to the tough guys, but it's a lifetime. 8 months, 12 months in prison changes you. It has to change you, because you're living in a world where the rules are different and you have to survive. So you have to adapt mentally. And that's when, for me, that's when you start to realize that I have a thinking problem, not a drinking and a drug problem. My problem is me. So what do I have to change? I'd have to, they're not going to take the drugs out of the world because I can't cope with them. They're not going to take alcohol off the shelf because I don't cope with it. So I had to learn how to cope with me, because I didn't cope with me. So I took chemicals to change the way I felt and to change the way I think. And that was where the revelation was. It really, when you said you had to have a real good look at yourself, I believe that's the key to recovery. Having a fearless and thorough look at who you really are and what's real and what's not real. Because as I'm sure you're aware, you're an intelligent human being. The future is just a plan and then a vivid imagination. And the past is just a memory, a recall.
Yeah. So
all we really have is today. And if we stay in today, we're okay. That's recovery is all about staying in today and not trusting the liar, the thief, and the cheat that lives in your brain that told you that drinking drugs or shooting heroin or crack or whatever drug of choice was going to fix the problem that was going on in your brain. You know, I say to people all the time, would you let a liar, a thief, and a cheat live in your home? Every one of them says no. And I say, well, why do you let him live in your head?
Yeah.
And you see the little light bulb going, they're like, oh, I can't answer that question. I don't know why. I haven't realized that this guy that lives in my head's a liar, a thief, and a cheat. And we have to learn to control our brain. You know, a lot of people who are a lot smarter than I am, and from all walks of life, talk about the brain taking control of us and destroying us. You know, that's why people do all these things. That's why people suicide. That's why people do heinous crimes. And that's why people do horrible things to each other, because our brain, not everybody, but I believe I was an addict long before I picked up a drug. You talked about it. You knew you were different from 10 years of age. Then they try to medicate it to control it. Now today you control it. You understand your thoughts. You understand what's positive, what's negative, what's creative, what's destructive, what's loving, what's selfish. You know, and I believe that's what we have to do. We have to have a real good look at who we are and what we are and what do we want to be and what are we prepared to do it. And I was prepared to give up anything not to be a low-life junkie. I didn't like being a junkie. You know, I don't think anyone wants to wake up tomorrow morning and goes, wow, let's be a low-life junkie that rips their family off and lets everybody down, but most of all lets themselves down and creates such a trauma and traumatic life that they hate themselves and their brain tells them, you're better off killing yourself. Because if anyone else spoke to you the way my brain speaks to me, and because you've got to remember, I grew up in a gangster world, I would have taken them at the backyard and shot them in the head if somebody else spoke to me the way I spoke to myself. You know, so that's when I realized it wasn't the drinking, the drugging, it was me. I was the problem, which is wonderful because you can fix that.
Yeah, that's true. It's just that time frame, right? It's
Yeah.
always the time frame for everybody's different between. How do you fast track that though, Ron? For somebody who they're listening to your show right now and they're in the middle of it, how do you get to that place sooner? Or do you have to hit some sort of barrier or bottom or something?
I have 8 demands. I call them the 8 demands. They're in my program. They're the core of my program. I don't care if you do a 12-step program. I don't care if you do religion. I don't care if you do water therapy, breath work, yoga. I don't care. I don't have a pigeonhole that this is how you have to get clean, but I believe you must have principles. And my 8 demands are openness, to state where you stand and not to stand your ground, to have an open mind, to have an open mind to accept that you cannot take a chemical and have a good life. I'm not saying you can't have a chemical. I'm saying you can't take a chemical and have a good life. And acceptance is the second one. Accept that every time you take a drug, your life turns to shit. And accept that you need help. And accept that other people can see you better than you can see yourself. Now, if one person says, man, you know, you're acting like a goose, have a look at it. Have an open mind, have a look at it. If 2 people tell you you're acting like a goose, have a real good look at it. If 3 people tell you you're acting like a goose, you're acting like a goose, man. You know, that's as simple as that. You know, the third one is reliability. You know, do what you say and say what you do. If you say you're going to do it, do it. If you say you're not going to do it, don't do it. I have a little saying, you know, for me, if I've got a business meeting and I'm there on time, I'm late. You know, I'm there early because, you know, and consistency. Start the day at 5 miles an hour, finish the day at 5 miles an hour. They're 4 elements of trust that if I put those into my life, people trust me. And I start to trust myself, you know. And then there's congruence, thoroughness, consistency, respect, and honesty. And they're the 8 demands I live by. If I have them 8 demands, then I can put them into other areas of my life and I become a successful human being instead of a unsuccessful human taking. Because I call people that take drugs human takings. Because we're taking everything. We're shoplifters. We just steal. We steal people's time. We steal their emotions, we steal their love, we steal their money, we steal their friendships, we steal their trust, you know. And when I'm clean, I don't do that. You know, I give. I'm a human being now. I'm being a human, and I love, understand, and have compassion and empathy. But you know, I'm 69 years of age nearly. That didn't come overnight. I got clean at 27. In 1981, the first time, and I relapsed 3 times up until 1986. And I've been clean since 1986. So I'm a bit over 37 and a half years clean. Did that stop me from making bad decisions? No. No, it didn't. I went back to prison at 16 years clean for conspiracy to import cocaine. And I got an 18-year sentence. That was hectic. To go back into a prison system at 16 years clean. And I mean, clean and sober, nothing. I haven't had a drink since 82 and I haven't had a drug since 86. And I stayed clean there by helping other people. And it was the first time I had an honest look at myself and changed my concept of what a man was, my concept of what a tough guy was, my concept of what a father was, a husband, a brother, a sister. You know, like I had to change my whole belief system because I wasn't brought up in a very good family. I was brought up in a pretty horrible family. My father was a gangster. So I was brought up as a gangster, as a gangster's child. I was encouraged to shoot people at 16 years of age. I was with my dad when I shot my first man. And he chastised me for not killing him, for only shooting him in the leg. I was a coward, you know. So I had to reassess everything. Even a long time of abstinence and a long time of recovery, my concepts were still really mixed up. And 22 years ago, I got sentenced. I got arrested in 2002, and I was married to a beautiful American girl. I had a beautiful 6-year-old daughter, and I'd financed a drug run. I'd lent a guy some money, and then he'd buggered it up. So me being me, I took control because I'm a control freak. And they had all these conversations, and I got sentenced to 18 years. And I stayed clean by helping other people. I opened a rehab in jail. I was lucky. It was a privately run prison, and they gave me the opportunity to run a whole unit with 30 men in it. And I taught them yoga. I taught them breath work. I taught them 12-step programs if they chose to. I taught them meditation. And people think that I'm a good guy because I help all these guys. But what I was actually doing was keeping myself clean.
Yeah.
Because I believe that I can only keep what I've got by giving it away. I believe by me carrying the message of recovery to the suffering addict, I treated my own pain and my own dysfunctional ways. And I had a revelation that I don't want to be a gangster, because gangsters to me were liars. I wrote a book while I was in prison. It's just being published this month, next month, and that's it there.
Oh, wow.
It's called Born into the Lie of Crime. It's got an F there, but the F's read it out as well. It's supposed to say Born into the Life of Crime, but it actually says Born into the Lie of Crime. That's my criminal. This is the police record from when I was a 17-year-old boy. There's 4 attempted murders in that rap sheet there. I'm 17. You know, it's sad. And that's a photo of me, 14 years of age, holding a machine gun at my mum and dad's house. And my dad was so proud of me. I was the apple of his eye. You know, it's disgusting. My children have all gone through private schools. One's a nurse, one's a nanny. You know, they're my oldest children. My children, one of my kids is 16 years sober. Oh, wow. And she runs a drug rehab and a detox center. I had an opportunity to change my life and to change the cycle of abuse and addiction in my family. And that's just been my goal. And then when I realized that I was given a gift, and it is a gift, to stop using it, to have a revelation that I don't know about you, but me, drugs completely ruled my life. My whole thinking was about getting and using and finding ways to get more. Today, I'm addicted to recovery. I spend every day talking to people in recovery. I treat people, you know, I teach people how I got clean, because that's all I can do. I can't teach you how you got clean or how Billy got clean or Steve got clean. I can only teach you how I stay clean and how I got clean. And I do that through Zoom. And, you know, I love doing it because I get to talk to people like yourself. I recover out loud. That's right. I disagree with the 12-step programs that anonymity is a spiritual foundation and we'll keep it hush-hush like a secret society. I believe our disease thrives on secrecy. You know,
Yeah.
people say, "Oh, did you use?" No, man. You know, mum and dad, did you smoke a cigarette? No, mum. Did you drink beer? No, mum. Are you stoned? No, mum. You know, we just lied. We lied, and we lied to ourselves. And today, you know, I'm not a liar, a thief, and a cheat. You know, I'm a decent human being that has the opportunity to speak to people like yourself that are doing wonderful things. So, fast forward, the addiction's taken from you. You've got clean. You start working in rehab.
Yeah, I actually did. Yeah, I started working at a rehab. Yeah, worked there for 6 years.
Yeah. Hard work.
Yeah, man, it was. It was. It was just sad towards the end too. It was really, really good when it was good, but then the fentanyl came into the picture. Towards
Well,
the end
yeah, we're lucky we haven't got that yet. It's
in
just
Australia.
starting here. It's just starting here.
Oh
I
god.
watched it on Philadelphia, and my heart dies.
Yeah, it's really bad. Yeah, and then I used to work with teenagers, so like 13 to 19,
The hardest
and it
group
was
of a
tough.
lot.
Yeah, and it was tough. It was a 6-month residential program, and people did a lot of good work, but a lot of people, we ended up burying a lot of people. You know,
Revolving door, brother.
Yeah, teenagers and stuff, and it was it was just a lot, right? To handle. You ask yourself, you always ask yourself, could you have done something different or said
No,
something
you
different?
couldn't.
And
You couldn't. I
yeah.
learned, I used to feel like I'd failed. Even today, I have people that I do my program, they relapse after a year or something. And I used to sort of take it personal. And then my spiritual advisor said to me, "Man, our job is to plant seeds. Their job's to weed it and water it. And if you think that you're weeding and watering, you think you're God." He said, "Because there's a power greater than you that's responsible for taking care of that stuff, not us." And it's true, but yeah, so a lot of credit, because that's a real. I know that you worked in a rehab, and I've also worked in a rehab, and I just watch them come back. They get fit, they get healthy, they start to think straight. And 6 months later, they're back, and they're back to derelict, degraded, hopeless again. That the hopelessness of an active addiction is heartbreaking, and their self-worth is, I've let my family down. I might as well kill myself. I had a phone call 2 weeks ago from a friend of mine. I treat his 17-year-old son. I like the kids too. I like treating with the young fellas. I do, because I guess I'm still a juvenile delinquent at heart. And he called me and he said, "Oh man," he said, "I'm really down today." This was on a Monday morning. I said, "What's the matter?" And I've actually treated 2 of his kids. He said, "A lady stopped me in the street last week, and her son had grown up with one of the kids I treated, and he was 18 months clean now. And he said she was asking about me, and said, 'I heard Jack's clean and this really nice guy.' And Mick said to her on the Friday, he said, 'Look, ring me Monday, and I'll hook you up with Ronnie, and Ronnie can talk to your son, and maybe he can do Ronnie's program, And she rang Mick on Monday morning and said he shot himself in the head on Saturday and killed himself at her house. So the mum found her son. She heard the noise, goes in the bedroom. He's taking his father's gun out to save and shot himself in the head. 18 years of age. And we have ice. We have the ice epidemic here. So people are self-harming. The fentanyl one, they're just ODing. These kids here in Australia, they're killing themselves, man, on the ice. The ice is causing so much havoc, and the crime rates just skyrocket, car theft. They're punching up 60 and 70-year-old men and beating them up for $20 wallets. And, like, the crimes have become so horrible and heinous, and the kids have got no respect. And, I don't know the answer. I don't know the answer. And I I think I do, but I don't. I'd like to pretend I know the answer, because I want to put them all into rehabs and out in the bush, not rehabs as we know them. I want to put them out in the country and teach them about being in contact with country. And see that paint behind me, that's Aboriginal art. I do a lot of work with the Aboriginal people. So, I want to take them out and teach them to fish and to hunt and to find out what trees you can eat off. And that's paper bark. And this one here is a soap tree. And because, the natives, Americans and Aborigines, and even where you guys are, they know more stuff than we'll ever know.
Yeah.
And we need to get back to, country. We need to get back to earth. But social media is a good platform for us to reach a lot more people. And that's why I do this thing. And my motivation is to carry a message to the addict who still suffers that there is a way out. That people like you and I can get clean. Why can't they?
Yeah.
And, it's from all walks of life. I try to get the truth about addiction is I get people who are still using and try to get them on my podcast. I get the parents of children who are addicts, and I get the children whose parents are addicts. I've had people on podcasts whose fathers have OD'd and they've died. Now they're adults and they talk about growing up with a father who was an active heroin user. And people have got to face the fact that just because we use drugs didn't mean we were bad people.
Yeah.
We did bad things. Okay, we committed crime. Okay, yeah, sure. But the actual using of the drug wasn't the crime. We committed the crimes to get the drugs. We didn't, I don't know about you, but when I was stoned, I didn't want to go out the house. I just wanted to sit on the couch and nod off. Burn myself with a cigarette. I didn't want to go out and harm anybody. But when the drugs ran out, then the desperation would come and I'd start harming. And so we've gone from rehab, then you started doing entrepreneurial stuff then?
Yeah. Then my wife was pregnant with our first daughter. We have 3 kids now.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
So you practiced and then you got good at it.
Yeah. That's what they say. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I went into work on a Sunday, man, and I used to get this bad anxiety for probably the last month of working there. Things just became too much and I could feel it in my body. And this one Sunday, I just quit, man. And that was like what I went to school for. And I mean, it was like this internal conflict about do you pack? Like, I was not happy doing what I was doing anymore.
Yeah.
But you also have that. Everybody has that thing, right? You have bills to pay and you have this and you have a mortgage and you have car payments and you have to keep the lights on and the internet running. But this one day, I don't know what it was, man, but I just went in there. It was a Sunday. I typed up a resignation letter. The other guys I work with, I said, boys, I can't do this for another minute. And they were like, what, why? I've been doing it 6 years. I said, dude, my body is telling me right now, but I can't do this for another second. And, so I quit working there, but that's when kind of like the entrepreneurial stuff started, man. I kind of made a pat. Like I was like, I'm just going to take a week. I want to think about what I'm going to do. I still wanted to share a story of recovery and try to help people, but like, you have to make a living at the same time. You have to make a living. I had no idea how to do that. How to connect the dots, right? About like wanting to help people. But I knew I didn't really want to show up to a center anymore. I didn't, and it was good and everything. But the other flip side of it too, Ron, is, and not that I need to be rich and I need to make tons of money in life, but like if I had that job now with 3 kids, I mean, I'm paying $2,000 a month in daycare. I couldn't afford to live very, very well. It just doesn't. Those service-based jobs traditionally just don't pay well. It's the weirdest thing in the world.
Yeah.
But that was another motivation for me, is I was just like, well, I want to have a shot to do more. So I left it. That's when it all started. That's when I kind of started sharing my story online about 6 years ago. I started sharing my story online. I don't know, 5 people enjoyed it. So I kept doing it. And now maybe 2 people do. So I'll keep doing it.
Yeah.
And then that's where sort of things, things went. And then, we have 3 kids now. And and everything, and life is good, man. I mean, I still look back and I'm just like, wow, like what a, just full of gratitude just to be able to like live and show up and not be in trouble all the time. And, I mean, it's just incredible.
The word gratitude, man, that's the big one. I say it all the time. A grateful addict won't use drugs.
Yeah.
I believe that with my whole heart. When I relapsed, I was ungrateful. The gifts I've been given, the freedoms, the freedom to wake up in the morning and not have to get on. Who am I going to rob? Who am I going to lie to? How am I going to manipulate some heroin off somebody so that I don't get physically sick? Today I wake up and I know I'm an old bugger, but I remarried and I've got a 4-year-old who was 4 yesterday, and a 7-year-old who's 8 in a couple of weeks. And I've got 40-year-old twin daughters, so I've got this gap of children. I'm a better dad today than what I've ever been. But the nice part is my 40-year-old children have never seen me use either, because they were only 2 when I relapsed. I met their mum in rehab. That's where you find your first love, when you get clean. Oh. That's where true love always begins, in rehab, man.
Isn't that one of the number one rules, Ron, for rehab?
Don't fall
do anything but fall in love.
Yeah. And, yeah. There was 3 cardinal rules in the rehab. There was no violence, no drugs, and no sex. I was really good at 2 of them. The other one, I went to rehab from prison. I'd spent 8 years in prison. This is before I went back and did the other 8 years before I got clean the first time. And I went to rehab because there was girls there, man. There was girls there that didn't have penises, and that was really exciting for me. That there was going to be some women there that weren't men. My motivation wasn't to get clean. My motivation was to learn how to use successfully. And I tried so hard, man.
Where was all that at? Was that in the US?
No, it was in Australia. It was in Australia. In 1981, we had a drug rehab. We still got that same rehab. My mate's the CEO. My other best mate's the board of directors, a guy I used with. This is the beautiful part about when you get clean, and you get clean with connection. I believe recovery is all about connection. That's why I love what you're doing with connecting to people, and you connect a lot of other people. And through our podcast, we'll connect other people from Australia will get connected to you, and other people from America will get connected to me. I do a lot of podcasts with a bunch of people. I just did the shaman, is a guy from Canada. Lovely man. He's he calls himself the shaman. He's a funny guy, lovely, eccentric, beautiful human being. I did a podcast with him a few months ago. I just did another one with a guy in Benjamin Leonard from the USA. He's a really good guy. So I get to meet all these beautiful people that I would never have got to meet if I hadn't have started this podcast.
Yeah. No,
this podcast is bringing people into my house that I was never going to get the chance to meet. And I'm not allowed to go to America either, so I don't feel too bad. All right. And I've never committed a crime there. They just, because I committed the crime in Australia, Randall Lyons is the author of the Shamanic Practitioner. So he's a really nice guy. You should check him out. He's very eccentric, pretty cool, local guy in Canada. He learned all about Indian medicine, Chinese medicine. So he's a full-blown Chinese medicine type of guy, and he's carrying the message of recovery. That's why I like the idea of people that didn't go to 12-step programs, or if they did go to 12-step programs. 12-step programs are wonderful. A lot of people get clean by them, but they're not the only program.
Yeah.
And people get brainwashed to believing, if you don't do it that way, you won't stay clean. Bullshit. I call bullshit on that.
Well, it's a hard message. It's a hard message to send, right? Because rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly fallen their path. But then what happens with the people who don't do well or don't find success, then it's like the blame is on the person.
You never followed the path.
like, and I believe it can go both ways. Even when I worked at the treatment center, I mean, we had to tailor the program to the client. The client had to put in work, but
Yep.
the program had to put in work too. Like, I mean, we had to create a program. It was just a building with 4 walls. Like
Yeah.
what we did inside there, how we operated, and the love and the compassion and the kindness we showed, but also the program, I'm trying to think of the clinical part of the program.
Yep. The
Every
purpose of
was
procedure.
responsibility. Yeah, there was. I believe there was responsibility for us to do a good job, and there was responsibility for the clients to show up
100%.
as well. So I think that's a tough, and I'm all for it too. For everybody to check out, their 12-step groups or whatever it is, smart recovery or refuge recovery or celebrate recovery or whatever the heck you want to do. But I just feel that's a tough thing, because if you go there and you're really putting in the work and you're doing everything that's suggested and things still don't, quote unquote, work out for you, then I know I just felt like, I mean, I was just the odd man out. Everybody else was just rocking and rolling. Well, what the heck's so wrong with, why can't I figure this out?
Yeah.
So can put you in a tough spot, right?
Yeah. But I believe I'm always going to have this addictive personality. I don't even like using the word addict, but I've got this obsessive compulsive personality. So what I learned to do is to put it into my work.
Yeah.
I'm addicted to helping people. I never robbed a bank to help somebody. I robbed a bank for heroin, but so it was a negative place to channel my obsessive compulsiveness or a positive energy. It's 11:54 at night. I'm sitting here doing a podcast with somebody in Canada to carry a message to people I don't even know. At no physical reward for myself, but the spiritual reward's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And that's what happens, I believe, when you get recovery. See, I don't believe abstinence is recovery. Just being without a drink or a drug doesn't equal recovery. I was without a drink or a drug for 16 years when I went back to prison. I wasn't recovering. I was drug-free. They say using the 12-step fellowship, I was a dry drunk or all those other words they use. No, I was a sick guy who hadn't dealt with his past and hadn't taken responsibility for his future. Today, I'm not that sick guy. Today, I have this beautiful, incredible life that I make decisions that I know are not going to get screwed up through other bad obsessions or compulsions. I don't cheat on my wife. I don't cheat on my tax bill even these days, and I cheated on everything. I'm really funny, in the old days, cheating was a big part of being a gangster. These days, if I'm doing business with somebody and they tell me that they've cheated on their wife, I won't do business with them anymore. And they go, what? And I say, well, if you're going to cheat on the person you love, the person who you're going to spend the rest of your life with, what the hell are you going to do to me?
Yeah. It's only a matter of time, right?
Yeah. And, if they're screwing her and they're going to rip her off, they're going to screw me and rip me off.
Yeah. Well, and you want to be around people who share the same values too, right? I think that's important, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why I reached out to you, because I see what you're doing. I watch, I look at things and I listen to what other people tell me too. I've got friends in Australia who go to me, oh, there's a thing called the Hope Shot. There's Sober is Cool. There's this and there's these other programs that are doing really good things. Well, then I research, the actual program, listen to what they got to say. I think, yeah, okay, I want to be part of that, because I don't want people who are just self-motivated. Look at me. I'm this guru, and I can make you get clean. No, you can't. No, you can't. Yeah. I can tell you how I got clean. I can tell you where the gold's buried. I can show you where the shovel is, but you got to pick up the shovel and dig, man. You got to give me 50%. If you don't give me 50%, we ain't going to get nothing here, because I ain't going to dig out the gold and then give it to you. That's my gold. I work on my program to stay clean for me. And I give you the gift of, trying to teach you how I do it. And if you're willing to make the effort to get it, then you can reap the rewards too,
Yeah.
So fast forward, what are you doing today? What's your plans and motivations for the future?
Good question, man. I wish I knew, Ron. I wish I
Really?
knew. No, I mean, I started my podcast in October, and it's just been an incredible run. I mean, the sober motivation, sharing sobriety stories. Launching the podcast in October, we ranked in the top 20. It's probably a top 100 worldwide show.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, we got over 400. That we just reached over 400,000 downloads total. My goal, man, is just to let people know that there's a better life out there if you want to. For people who are in recovery too, to keep going, because I mean,
Yeah.
relapse is real.
Yeah.
And it's not just for people who are trying to get sober, but for people who are just on the journey to hear stories, to connect with people. I just always reflect back to feeling like so alone, and then what's wrong with me. And I never knew, man. I never knew about sobriety. I never knew about people living a better life, and I didn't know about that stuff. So I just don't want anybody, I want everybody in their pocket. They've got something that can help them, hopefully something they can connect with one part of somebody's story. So that's really like my big passion right now. And I also host some support groups on our app, Sober Buddy. I host 3 support groups a day. We don't do when I say support groups, we just keep it light. We do a general check-in. It's not, I try to come at this whole thing as I'm not the gatekeeper for recovery, for a better life. I don't have all the answers. People message me, what about 0% beer? What about this? What about that? What about,
I get it all
what
the
do I
time.
do? What do I do with my husband drinks? Well,
Mm.
you guys, I'm all for empowering people to make their own decisions. I
Yeah.
mean, I'll ask questions, but I'm not, my role is not to tell everybody how to live life. It's for people to ask maybe the right question, or maybe get the wheels turning for people to figure out their own solutions, because the alcoholic only gets sober when it's their idea, when it's our idea.
When they
And
want
things
it.
in our life, yeah, and things in our life only change when they're our idea. We can't force people and do all this stuff to get people to change. So that's what I try to do. I don't have all the answers, man. I mean, I went to school, I worked in a rehab. I've been talking with people for 15 years, but at the end of the day, like, I mean, a father of 3, under 5 years old, Ron, I'm still trying to just, take this thing a day at a time and figure out some of these things for myself. Like, of course, my life is much better than what it used to be like,
Yeah.
but there's also this other idea out there, is that sobriety just makes life perfect every day.
Yeah.
And
Beautiful.
I mean, it's a lot better, but life still happens. And I personally, I constantly have to work on what ended me up using substances in the first place. I mean, that stuff didn't just go away because I put it down, right? It's like you mentioned too, the thinking thing, not a drinking thing,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's a big part of it, right? So yeah, I mean, I'm rocking and rolling the podcast and the Sober Buddy app, and just trying to make a difference out there, man, a little bit at a time, and just create some hope for people,
How
that
old are you now,
things.
Brad?
35.
35. Yeah, man. Good age. Yeah. Good. And you got 3 kids under 5 years of age. So you know what, man? This is your karma now.
That's it, buddy. It caught up with me, didn't it?
Yeah. Are they
It's
boys or
great though.
girls? They boys
Sorry?
or girls, man?
2 girls and then 1 boy.
Oh, you're in trouble.
Yeah, I
Girls are
know.
just so hard. I got twin 40-year-old. I got twins 40-year-olds. And I love them dearly, man. They are the apple of my eyes. And I got this 2-year-old little girl that's just a 4-year-old, I should say, that's just wonderful. And yeah, and I got
Yeah.
a 28-year-old that's half American. And man, I'm blessed. I got 4 girls and a couple of
Wow.
boys
So
and a couple of
Ron.
boys, all different women. Like I was just such a I had loose morals when it came. Look, I was a really good dad, but I was a really shitty husband. Today, I'm a
Yeah.
really good dad and a really good husband because I have a program, and my program's really simple. Those 8 demands I talked about. I should get my wife to send you a copy of them
Yeah, please do.
because we have them that I send to all my clients, and it's just oops, that's upside down. That's them there.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow.
I'll get V to email you over a copy, brother.
Okay, cool. Yeah, thank you.
Mate, they're just really nice. They sit on my whiteboard right in my office. I sit them there, and I've been doing that for 42 years. I use those 8 demands in all areas of my life, and I do them in all my businesses. And I'm a street kid that couldn't read or write. I've read a book. I've written a book. I've published a book. I've been successful in every company I've ever owned. The only thing I wasn't successful at was drug abuse and crime. The two things I thought that I was a hot shot at, the two things I thought I was good at, I was hopeless at both of them. And the things I thought that I was worthless, useless, and no good at was living life on life's terms. And I'm turning out to be pretty bloody good at that.
Yeah.
So it's a beautiful life, man. You're so easy to talk to, Brad. I'd love to just chat, man. You're doing good stuff. I'm really excited for you, and you've got so much ahead of you for this beautiful family, man. Wow, 35 years of age, and to be clean for as long as you have, man, you've done really well. You're doing really well. You should be proud of yourself. And I say it to people with all sincerity, give yourself a pat on the back, because when you're patting yourself on the back, you're moving forward. When you start patting your chest, you're going backwards. So give yourself a back. And I'm really, really happy that I've been able to connect with you. I mean that sincerely. And thank you for your time on the truth about addiction, my friend.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Ron, for having me, buddy.
I solemnly swear that I will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.